Okay, thanks everyone for coming. Before I start, I'd like to introduce everybody. We have Kevin, Marshane, Mary Jane, and John. The last presentation, as you recall, we went over the 10 essential items that you should take with you when you go hiking. So if you run into a problem while you're out in the wilderness or an emergency or you get lost, those items hopefully will help you survive until rescuers show up. Today, we're going to talk about what happens when you get lost in the woods. And we're going to go over some guidelines. A good acronym to remember is STOP, which stands for Stop, Think, Observe, and Plan. Before I go into that, though, there's one of you here who wasn't here for the last presentation, so I wanted to go over the 10 essentials list. So the 10 essential list, there's a classic list, but the one that we went over was the 10 essential systems list. And just a quick overview of that. A navigation system would involve a compass or maps, GPS devices. Sun protection would be sunscreen, sunglasses. Insulation would be extra clothing, hats, rain gear, mittens, gloves. Illumination would be things like a headlamp or flashlight. So if you get caught out in the dark, you have a way to light where you're headed. First aid supplies, you want to have something that's not 2 Band-Aids and an aspirin. You want something that's actually functional, that's going to help you. Fire essentials would be matches, dry twigs, dryer lint that you would take with you to help you light a fire. Repair kits and tools, that would include things like duct tape. A repair kit, if you have a blow-up mattress and you get a hole in it, you're going to stay the night. Tools would be like a knife, a Leatherman. Nutrition, so obviously food items. You want to bring stuff that's not going to be perishable. Dried fruit, nuts, beef jerky, those would be good to have. Hydration, you want to make sure that you have hydration or water with you. Items that will help you filter water if you run out. You can get water from a stream or a pond, so the filtration system or purification tablets would be good to have. And then finally, emergency shelter. And that's not necessarily a tent, but something that's going to protect you from the elements. So a bivy sack, a plastic bag, or a light tarp. And before we go into the STOP guidelines, one of the things that you should do before you hike is file a hiking plan. And I gave you a copy of a hiking plan there. I got that from our local sheriff's office search and rescue website. And what it does is it allows you to list the hikers' names, the trail that you might be on, the trailhead that you're starting at, the vehicle information that you're driving, any camping spots that you're staying at, and then any items that you have with you. And if you look at the back of that page, you can draw your travel plans on the back. And what you want to do is you want to give that to somebody you trust, a family member, a friend, somebody who's going to notice that you didn't make it home from your hike. And they can contact search and rescue responders. They have the information there, and this helps pinpoint where they can start looking for you. So pretty important to have. So you've done all that planning, you have your 10 essentials, you've filed your hiking plan, and you still find yourself lost in the woods. What do? So the first part of STOP is to stop. People might find themselves panicked when they find that they are lost in the woods. So what you want to do is just sit down, relax for a moment, maybe have some water, have a little bit of food, and assess your situation. If you choose to continue to walk, the figure is 75%, you have a 75% chance of going in the wrong direction. So staying put until you figure out what you're going to do is a better option than continuing to walk. The next thing is to think, just like Winnie the Pooh. So what you want to do is think about what was your last location where you knew you were at. How did you get to where you are? Are you able to trace your steps back to a known location? What direction are you traveling? That might help you be able to orient yourself a little bit. After that, you want to observe the area that you're in. Look for landmarks. It's a good time to start pulling out part of your 10 essentials, so compass and a map, to try to figure out where certain landmarks are that might help reorient yourself. If you are able to reorient yourself and get back to the trail, you want to assess other things such as, do you have enough daylight to get back to the trail? Do you have enough provisions? So after observing your area and trying to reorient yourself, the next step would be to plan. So come up with some plans. Are you going to continue back to the spot where you can find the trail, or are you going to wait and ask for help? If you do go to the spot, make sure that you mark the trail that you're taking to get back to the spot. And ways to do that is put sticks on the ground. You can stack rocks. You can tear up a bandana and tie it to trees or bushes. Just something that you can allow yourself to backtrack to a spot in case you get lost. If you decide to wait for search and rescue, wait for help, there's a few things that you can do. The very first thing would be to try to call 911 if you have cell service. If you can't get a phone call out, another option would be to try to get a text message out. Sometimes a text message will go before a phone call will go. If you have a personal locator beacon, activate it. If you don't know what that is, that's a device that you can activate. It'll send out a signal that somebody's in distress. It'll give GPS coordinates that are general to responders, and it'll give them notification that there's a problem and kind of where it's at.
Where do you get those?
Where do you get those? REI gets them. You can find them online. And then there's several different kinds and different, there's some that are monitored by private companies like Spot. And there's various different ones. You should also find a spot where you're visible from air. So if search and rescue is looking for you and they send up a helicopter, it'd be good that they can see you. Some things that you can do while you're waiting and to keep yourself active and to some self-preservation, one would be find shelter. And you can look for a rock overhang, cave, go under a tree, but make sure it's a sturdy tree, not something where branches are going to break off and fall on your head. Or if a tarp, if you happen to have that as your 10 essentials, that would be good to make some shelter for you. Next, you should stay hydrated. Probably not quite the way that you should stay hydrated, but you might want it. Everyone loves a good vodka tonic. But the hydration that you're looking for really is water. And you want to, if you're running out of water, you want to find a water source. So a pond, a river, a stream. Make sure you filter it, treat it with the tabs, the purification tabs that you brought, or your filtration system. Here is a man who's got a filtration system here. You can kind of see how it's set up. He's in, it looks like a pond or something, but able to get some water that won't make him sick. Next, you want to protect yourself from the elements. So keep yourself warm and dry. Part of the 10 essentials can be a garbage bag. You can put that on to keep you dry from rain or wind, protect you from the wind. A bivy sack is this, and if you recall from the last presentation, that reflects 90% of the heat back to you. So it's also waterproof. And you can make it into like a tarp type thing, it unzips, or you can get into it. Another thing is tree boughs or tree branches. You can insulate yourself, put them over you. It can protect you from the wind. If you don't have those other items, that might be something out in the wilderness that you can use. And finally, you want to nourish yourself. So that food that you brought with you, the nuts or the dried fruit, just keep yourself nourished so you don't lose your energy. And finally, you want to wait for search and rescue. Don't move. It's hard enough trying to find a needle in a haystack, but to find a moving needle in a haystack is even more difficult, so wait for them, and then they'll find you. Have your search and rescue people. Hopefully you don't ever have to use this, but if you do, there are some tips for you. Does anyone have any questions? Very good. Thank you very much.